Welcome to CMMS Radio, a podcast and general resource for all things CMMS, computerized maintenance management software, from selection to implementation to help you make better choices and have a successful CMMS journey. We'll bring in experts along the way to help us learn more about CMMS, facilities operations, and much more. If you need help with the CMMS project, send a message at cmmsradio.com using the What's on Your Mind link. Suggest a topic, share your CMMS story, or ask questions. Thanks for tuning in. Today we are joined by Todd. He is Senior Consultant at Total Resource Management, a reliability consultancy, and he knows CMMS, or computerized maintenance management software, very well. Total Resource Management helps you improve both your industrial maintenance performance and CMMS technology. John is a reliability engineering professional, a Lean Six Sigma black belt with extensive real-world experience and expertise. John is presenting at the Reliable Plant Conference in Orlando, Florida. That's on August 1st that he's presenting at 11 a.m. Eastern Time on the critical connection between digital transformation and sustainable continuous improvement. John, welcome to CMMS Radio.
Yeah, great. Thanks for having me.
It's really nice to bring you on, especially ahead of the event. Real quick, I just want to share with people, if anybody wants to attend Reliable Plant Conference for free to learn from experts like John, take a look at the Qualified End User program. The program dials you in for the entire conference. It gets you a full itinerary. All you have to do is go to conference.reliableplant.com and click attend for free. And please enter the code RPGC at the end of your submission form. They'll be on standby waiting for that. So I really just wanted to talk a little bit about your background. You've got experience with this particular conference, and how does that really play out for you? If you could just give us a little bit of a summary.
Sure. So I've been working with Maximo in a variety of roles for what is now becoming many years. um, I was a reliability engineer out at the Deep Space Network in California for quite a while. And we had Maximo, and my job was to pull data out of Maximo and do reliability studies. So there was kind of a love-hate relationship there. And then used it in a variety of other ways. And of course, now with TRM, I'm able to take some of those real world experience with way deep into Maximo, understanding its data and such, and helping customers with a lot of different industries to start to adopt the software as well. So it's been a lot of fun. So
I bet. And you've I mean, when you talk about seeing it all, you've been at this a long time. So you've seen a lot of different scenarios and help people get out of jams. They think they're in a jam and you go, oh, wait a minute, over here, you do these three things and you guys are going to be dialed in. Is that the kind of stuff that you do for folks?
yeah, that's it. I do a lot of demonstrations of Maximo and such, as you can imagine. But most of it really is helping people understand what a tool like that actually brings to them. Not necessarily down to the feature functionality, but it's more the business decisions or the data that you can use to make those decisions that is really the important thing. As we were talking before, you're talking about process. A lot of folks, they've been doing business a certain way for many, many years, and that's great. But they then try to take that and turn it into software, right? We do things this way and we want to see that on our screen. Well, in some cases, that's okay. But a lot of the times, adopting a new software package is an opportunity to really question your processes. Do we really have to do it this way? Are there built-in, call them best practices if you'd like. Are there built-in processes in these software tools that you could just adopt? Maybe 90%, maybe 85%, and then refine just a little bit. So that's a lot of the conversation that we have with folks is, hey, we want software to help us do stuff, but we do things this way. And it's that tension that folks need to get over. So, yeah.
Now, when it comes to all that and what you've seen, I think a lot of this is going to be, and I don't want you to give everything away, right? But I wanted to kind of talk a little bit about the presentation that you're giving at
Sure.
Reliable Plant in the learning session. It's called The Critical Connection Between Digital Transformation and Sustainable Continuous Improvement. And there's a lot I like about that title, but instead of me trying to interpret it and tell you what I like about it, can you
Sure.
give us just a little taste without giving away too much?
Sure. So I have to admit that, I mean, I've given lots of presentations and lots of things over the years. This was perhaps the most difficult one to put together that I have ever done, because you throw out the term digital transformation, and immediately everybody starts thinking about a bunch of marketing noise, right? So the challenge is, digital transformation. It's nothing new. It's been going on. It's accelerating. Okay, um, and there's a lot of benefits to transforming the way you do things from paper to digital to electronics. Right? We have data now that we didn't have 5 years ago. We have questions that we can answer that we didn't have the questions 5 years ago. Right? So you have to have a strategy. If you're going to endeavor on a digital transformation adventure, you have to have a strategy. And we approach, and here's kind of the secret sauce, right? Is we approach it with three pieces. You've got your people, your processes, and then last, the very last, after those two are taken care of, are your programs, right? Programs being your software tools and the things that you use. And so this presentation really is to help you, identify, what is your strategy going to be? What role do your people play, right? Are they transforming now? Have they been? Are they resistant to it? Right? Have you handed them a tablet and say, "Here, your job is now digital"? Right? It's a little hard to use that with you got your gloves on, right?
Yeah.
And then your processes. That's the big thing in the middle is, again, like we talked about just a moment ago, is taking how you do business now and trying to stuff that into software is not always going to work. Take the time, re-engineer some processes, keep what's good, throw away what's not good, um, and then take those two things and say, okay, how is our software solutions? How are our software solutions? Whether we have them now or whether we're thinking about buying them, how are they going to support our people operating those processes? And so you put all this into a neat strategy and you publish the strategy and communicate the strategy and stick to the strategy. And when your project is done, you start all over again and keep on going. So, um, yeah, it was, trying to take a lot of real world practical experience and put it into a presentation that on the surface sounds like a bunch of marketing hype. So it'll be fun. It'll be fun. I'm looking
Yeah.
forward to poking
Well,
some poking some sharp sticks here and there.
yeah, I think what's good about it though is as challenging as it is, when you take that real world experience and then the practical approaches that really work,
Right.
and I think we can all safely assume that one size fits all just doesn't work, but
No.
you still need a framework. Some,
Right.
let's, for example, call them, just as an example, five basic principles that you definitely have to have in place. And then from there, you'll have flexibility to do some adapting and kind of massaging things in a certain way. But
Right.
these goals that you have for people that are going to participate in this session, or when you've worked with people for all these years, they're very achievable, but
Hmm.
the task of getting there, executing, putting in the work on this plan is daunting. It's really
Right.
overwhelming for people, which I think is another thing that you're talking about when you present it.
Right.
It can be overwhelming, but what you actually do, for example, at TRM, is
Mm.
you ease some of that burden and say, hey, we're here, we've done it, we know how to listen to you, and we're going to
Right.
get you there so you don't have to be so afraid of that hard work that's really going to pay off later. Yeah.
Right. Right. Yeah. And you mentioned goals. That's one of the first things is for the strategy is, so what are your goals, right? When it comes to transforming the business, what does that mean? Are you needing to increase production 10%? Are you needing to, ingest a new acquisition that you've made? What are the overriding corporate goals that are driving the need to transform, to bring in new software tools, to whatever? And it's funny, you would think that everybody would have what those goals are, tattooed to their forehead and know what they are. But oftentimes it's, well, I don't know. We just want to process work orders. Okay, so get out a spreadsheet and off you go. Save you $1 million. All right. So, but yeah, it really starts at the, what are those goals, and then how does, whatever this thing that's transforming, maybe it's maintenance, maybe it's facilities, or whatever it is, how are those activities, in support of, achieving that goal, right? And so that's a critical piece of this strategy is mapping to those goals. And then, hey, if you're doing something down here in the weeds that isn't in support of the goals, it's not that the goals are a problem, it's what you're doing down here in the weeds. Why bother, right?
Yeah.
um, yeah. A good example is like reports. Oftentimes these software tools, they all can report out and everything. And how many folks get 4 or 5 reports a week, and they're in their inbox and they don't really look at them, or they might look at them, but do they make decisions with them? Do they ever say, hey, this is 5 and it's supposed to be 8, why is it not 8? And everybody screws around it. So yeah, there's lots of time and effort is spent creating custom reports and formatted reports and such. And if nobody uses them, what's the point, right? What's the point? Maybe they should just be on a dashboard. The information should just be on a dashboard, right? And instead of going through the email, it's just, oh, I want to look at it. Oh, now I can say, oh, it needs to be 8 and it's 5. There's a problem, right? Um, so now we're getting into kind of the details of, so what do these solutions look like? What do they bring you? And um, reports are a particular one for me because they take a lot of effort to create, and 85% of them just aren't used. You know, so
It, it's interesting that you're saying that, and then what you were talking about previously. You gave this example of, if you just want to start doing work orders and collecting that type of data initially, you can
right.
save yourself a lot of money, and you can go ahead and do that. Now, if you're an organization, for example, in the CMMS world, you don't have one, that's a great place to start.
Hmm.
However, it's also important, I would say, to have an end in mind as it relates to, why are we doing work orders and collecting the data? What are we going to do with that data? Now, some companies,
Right.
organizations, or situations might say, well, we don't know. We just know we can do a lot with it. Well, I would actually say that's kind of okay. It's okay to get started. However, go just a little bit further and don't just panic and say, we don't have a CMMS. We think we need a CMMS. We're going to go grab a CMMS. And then you get down the line 6, 12, 18 months. And there's two things you overlooked in the beginning that you absolutely needed to
Right.
achieve your goal, right? So these types of things are the intricacies that change environment by environment. The no one size
Right.
fits all is just not going to happen. That's where someone like you or the session you're giving comes into play. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And the data. What's nice now, but can become cumbersome, is the data, the business data that's just collected behind the scenes in these systems is very useful. Um, and also, we've reached a point where an individual user, the folks that are out getting paid to fix stuff, don't necessarily have to manually, put in or enter or select that data. These software tools and such with, business rules and things like that, this important data can be collected without them, really knowing it, right? Um, but then, yes, the important part is once this data is collected, you invest the time and effort to ensure it's being collected. You better be using it to make decisions, right? um, and now with so many sources of data, telemetry coming off of equipment, just the whole mobile workforce with all that information coming into these systems. There's now a lot, and it's a lot more detailed. So the question is, one, how can we take advantage of it, right? And make sure that it's being filtered, it makes sense, so that you can, oh gosh, we're processing, 50% more work orders in the last 365 days. Well, that sounds like a good thing, right? Well, question is, why do you have so many work orders? Right? Maybe you have an increase in work orders, right? Is that good, or maybe that's not so good, right? So yeah, this data, this flood of data that we have, is a good thing, but it's also has to be managed and cared for. So
Yeah. So when you're talking about that and how you can look at the fact that you're accomplishing more with all these work orders, but then you could go a little bit deeper and say, well, wait a minute, how many of those work orders were even necessary?
right,
You're
yep,
what you're talking about, at least in my view, is that starts speaking to maintenance maturity,
hmm,
or even similar to project execution maturity model, where over a period of time, through this data transformation, digital transformation, can actually lead you on a path where you're going to mature as an organization, get better, and that gets back to the process optimization,
right,
right? It can
right,
become a constant over a long enough period of time, or a short enough period of time, couple of years,
right,
and really change an entire organization.
right.
And that's
It's it's a lot of fun to, well, it's also gets to be a little disconcerting, but it's a lot of fun to look over the shoulder of a rather new client, and I say, so show me what it takes to purchase an item for a work order. And they say, oh, they're all excited. Yes, okay, I click here, I click here, I go there, click here, click, 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 click. And then I wait. And then I get an email about an hour later. And then I go click, 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 click. I was like, oh my gosh. You know, so time to clean that up. Now is that a software problem? No, it's probably more of a process issue, right?
Mhm.
Why do all these steps have to be gone through just to buy something? I should be able to say, I need this. Here's my charge code. Off it goes. You know, so yeah, lots of opportunities to clean that kind of stuff up. So
Yeah, and it's they're so numerous that it can really spin out, and that speaks to how people get overwhelmed with it. But I think what's really good about this, that we're talking about it now, and of course, out at the conference, Reliable Plant, there's going to be
mm,
lots of opportunities to learn about this stuff. Is
right,
that people can be okay with the fact that, yeah, it's kind of supposed to be daunting until you figure out a way to make it less daunting. One thing's
right,
for sure, you're gonna have to do this work if you want to find those opportunities for process
right,
improvement and optimization. You'll have to do it, because what you're doing now, quote unquote,
yeah,
is just not going to get you any further.
right. I like to use two examples. Is we've all sat on airplanes looking out the window watching them load bags, right? And those hardworking, either hot or cold people, sometimes wet, um, they have a handheld scanner, right? And they're scanning the tag, and they look at it, and good, scan the next one, scan the next one, scan the next one. So the way that system is designed, right, that software behind the scene is very specific to what they need to do. They're very efficient with it, and I imagine their success rate is very high. I haven't had a bag lost in many years, so it must work well. And the other example are the delivery folks that show up at your door every other day, right? They fling the package and scan the package and take a picture and move on to the next one, right? So translate that into maintenance folks, facilities folks out there doing their job, can these software tools and these mobile devices, collect the data that's needed for the business to make decisions with, but at the same time, that data collection is seamless or transparent to the people out there doing that work. So, and that's all part of this digital transformation process that we've been at for quite some time now. So,
Yeah, yeah. So speaking of that, um, I was curious. A couple of things. One, will Total Resource Management have a booth at Reliable Plant?
oh yeah, yep. TRM and almost 2 years ago now, we purchased another company called IDCON, who does reliability and maintenance consulting. So they do a lot of that front end people and process stuff. You can kind of see where this came from now, right?
Yeah.
So they do a lot of the people and process stuff, and then there's a mapping or a handover to where the program side where TRM we'd implement tools like Maximo and such as well. So yep,
Right.
we'll
And
both be there side by side.
excellent, excellent. And I'm going to be there. I'm going to do some spot interviews. I'm going to have an area where I can do some interviews. I'm not having a booth. I'm
Okay,
going to do some what I'm referring to as walk and talks, where I'm going to stop by some booths, talk to some people. Definitely want
sure.
to connect with people like you. So uh, I wanted to ask, aside from you know being in the booth or giving your presentation during the learning session, what are you most looking forward to when it comes to attending the Reliable Plant Conference? What are you
Sure.
excited about?
Yeah, so I like to kind of my area of interest is I always like to see the new mobile solutions that are um, working around an engine like Maximo, right? Because I mean, we all have phones, we all have tablets. We've been having it for years. Oh, there's an app for that, right? And it's just so easy for us to order stuff and play games and all that. But at work, it seems like we struggle with providing those types of applications for folks. So I've always been very intrigued by the up and coming smaller vendors that are developing mobile solutions or even solutions that are around Maximo, like reporting. There's a bunch of them, not a bunch, but there's several that are focused on inventory and purchasing and that kind of stuff. So that's usually my goal, is to find the up and comers out there. And well, that's why with Lube PM, right, with Noria, okay,
Yep.
we encountered them, and I said, "Hey, your mobile application is speaking Maximo language. We should interface those two." And I'm not sure if you're aware of it or not, but there is now an interface between Lube PM and Maximo that we helped the two companies, built it together, and it all started with them, showing me a demo of what they had. So that was a lot of fun. So
Yeah, I we did an episode on CMMS Radio for Lube PM.
oh, good.
Uh,
Okay,
I've
great.
had Bennett Fitch on. I've had
Hmm.
Wes Cash on. I think the conference is going to be amazing, not just to learn about and see these new up and coming technologies, but
Right.
just to have this culmination of all these people learning together from one another, curating the knowledge. There's going to be all kinds of cool stuff there. That for me, I've always wanted to go to this show, so I'm
Yeah.
really excited because it's their 25th anniversary, silver
Right.
anniversary. That's a big deal.
Right.
So we'll definitely have to make sure we connect at the conference.
Sure.
I'll definitely stop by the booth, say hello, love to meet some of your team members, and
Yeah.
um,
Yep.
I also want to thank you for putting on the learning session and for joining me today. What I'm going to do is go ahead and close out. If you give me a second, I want to let people know how they get in touch with you. So you can
Sure.
connect with John Todd on LinkedIn. He's very active on the platform. And make sure you check out his learning session at Reliable Plant in Orlando. You can visit www.trmnet.com to learn more about total resource management, and you can schedule a maintenance and reliability assessment. They have done hundreds upon hundreds of those. And it's a great place to start just to get that conversation going and find out how your organization is doing. Whether you work directly with John or someone else on the team, I encourage you to do that. John, I really want to thank you for being here today and sharing all this with us.
Oh, thank you very much. It was enjoyed.
Did you find this episode helpful? Please send us some feedback, suggest a topic, or ask a question. Reach out to CMMS Radio if you need a co-pilot on your CMMS project. Visit CMMSradio.com and use the What's on Your Mind link. Thank you for tuning in to CMMS Radio, your resource for all things CMMS, from selection to implementation, to help you make better choices, learn from industry experts, and have a successful CMMS journey.